Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, May 28. David Martindale's Livingston future sealed. Report by Ewan Payton. David Martindale has been backed by Livingston's board to guide the club back to the Scottish Premiership at the first time of asking. Speculation over the 48-year-old's future in West Lothian had been raised following a dismal campaign which saw Livingston relegated with a whimper. A section of the support had grown unhappy with Martindale and were calling for change ahead of next season's assault on the championship. A joint statement by club chiefs John McIlvogue, John Ward and Dave Black has been issued, and Martindale will be the man to continue at the helm. They explain, "We can confirm that men's first-team manager David Martindale will continue at the helm for our 24-25 championship campaign. There is no getting away from the fact that this season has been disappointing. Every single member of staff inside the building is hurting with how the year transpired, and we know full well that the same disappointment and upset is shared amongst our supporters. However, we now have an opportunity to regroup, both on the park and in the stands, but we can only do it with everyone pulling in the same direction." David has been involved with the coaching setup here for almost 10 years. His involvement in the dugout has seen us lift a League One title, win the Premiership playoffs, 2 top 6 finishes, 2 seasons just missing out on the top 6 in the final game before the split, a National Cup final appearance, and a club record 6 consecutive seasons in the top flight. For a club of our size and stature, that is an incredible return, and a list of achievements that David deserves huge credit for. As your board, we believe that David has earned the right to remain as first-team manager and have the opportunity to try to steer us back to the Premiership. His commitment and dedication to the club over the years is unrivalled, and whilst that alone cannot be the sole driver behind remaining in charge, his qualities as a manager, as a coach, and as a leader give us full confidence that David is the man we want in charge of this football club going forward. We are acutely aware of the budget constraints that David was working under this season. Losses in the previous 2 years meant that we had to convince club auditors that we could remain viable in the 23-24 season, and the only way to do that was to reduce the club's budget across all departments. Such is the nature of football, that everyone has an opinion, and some people will have a differing opinion to ours. However, with this decision now made, and the hard work continuing off the field, we need our supporters to put this season to bed. Understand that as a club it's been an undoubted disappointment to drop a division, but now start to look to the season ahead and the new challenge we face. We believe we have the core of a very good squad, and with the addition of further targets that the manager has identified, we will give ourselves a real good chance of being right in the mix come the end of next season. We are excited at the challenge we face. With that, we will have a different pressure on all of us next season, but there's a real positive energy within the club that we can take this year of adversity and use that to channel a successful promotion push. Having that same positive energy in the stands from the fan base can make such a vital difference on match day. We need to get back to that united feeling of us against the world, which was what got us into the Premiership in the first place. Off the field, we have a terrific group of staff who now have multiple years of experience running a Premiership club. We will take that Premiership professionalism into the Championship and look to keep those standards to support the team's return to the top flight. We ask you all to join us in giving your full backing to the manager, his coaching staff, and the players as we look to get back to winning ways, have a successful season on and off the pitch, and return the club back to the top flight at the first attempt. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 28. Robbie Clyde makes early impression as Scottish golf chief. Report by Nick Rodger. Did you ever own a Rubik's Cube? Perhaps you've still got it, and once you've finished reading this column, or whenever you get scunnered by these haverings, you will pick the thing up and start biddling and twiddling away in the fumbling, footering and forlorn quest to get all 6 sides matched up. The reason I ask this is that my son got one at the weekend, even though I told him that if he was so keen to immerse himself in a mentally flummoxing, infuriating pursuit that teases, torments, and leads to a lifetime of muttering, cursing futility, then he should just accompany me to the golf course. Apparently the thinking behind all the Erno Rubik's Cube creation was that he wanted to solve the structural problem of moving the parts independently without the entire mechanism falling apart. It sounds like the conundrum of my bloomin' swing, to be honest. As Gary Player once observed, golf is a puzzle without an answer. Perhaps I should just tell my young one to stick with that daft cube after all. For Robbie Clyde, the new man at the helm of Scottish golf, there are plenty of things that need fathoming out. In the last 8 or so years, the amateur game's governing body has churned through more bosses than Hibs Football Club. Clyde is the 6th incumbent since 2016, but, having taken on the role last September, he has already made a mark. At last week's AGM, Clyde and his team were given the go-ahead to increase the affiliation fee that club members pay by £3 to £17.50. A £3 hike is hardly LIV golf sums. Italian golfers, in comparison, pay a subscription of around £85 a year to their federation. But for Clyde, the modest rise is hugely significant as he looks to implement various plans to assist clubs, employ regional development officers, bolster memberships, and attract more women and girls into the game. Clyde's vision is admirable. It will come with considerable challenges as well, and he has managed to get the majority to sing off the same hymn sheet. That's not always been the case for previous Scottish golf chiefs, who often struggled to win over the masses. Let's face it, you can trace a disconnect between Scottish golf and its membership going back to the calamitous financial collapse of the Scottish National Golf Centre in 2003. Since then, many club members and various associations have just about distrusted everything the governing body has done. Over the past few months, Clyde has been out and about at clubs the length and breadth of the country, spreading the gospel, answering questions, and importantly, listening. In the push to win hearts and minds, the 51-year-old and his colleagues have put in the hard yards. Of course, as any leader of a governing body will appreciate, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. A cursory glance at some of the reaction to the subscription increase on that genteel, level-headed platform known as social media threw up such views as disgrace and incompetence. Or was that just my 6-monthly appraisal? As ever, there will be the stubborn pockets of grim resistance who will never get on board with any new strategy. There's a tendency with golf and golfers to look back, to dwell on this, that, and the other, or mull over the what-ifs, maybes, and might-have-beens, and the ones that have got away. When it comes to the governing body, there will be plenty of folk who still look back and will tell you that things were much better in the good old days, when the Scottish Golf Union, as it was known, was run by about 3 people from a building at the bottom of the car park at the Royal Burgess. Such a rose-tinted view is all very well, and those involved then were all passionate, tireless enthusiasts. But these good old days were also a time when golf, in many quarters, was hostile to women and children, and clubs were mired in complacency, self-importance, and an I been attitude. Some still are. Times change. The golfing landscape changes, but the statistic, for instance, that females make up barely 12% of club memberships in Scotland remains a lamentable one for the country that gave the game to the world. It's one of the pressing issues Clyde wants to address. I don't want to look at the past, he said. We have put a plan together. It has been endorsed by our members, and we can now move forward. For the first time in a long while, Scottish golf, and those the body serves, are ready to move forward as one. That's the first part of the puzzle solved at least. Perhaps Clyde can help my son with that ruddy Rubik's Cube next. And another thing. The utterly dreadful news that PGA Tour winner Grayson Murray had taken his own life has shaken the game to its core. Professional golfers in the upper echelons have never had it so good, but vast riches and bountiful trappings cannot guarantee contentment. Murray was a tortured soul, whose struggles with addiction and depression were well documented. The 30-year-old spoke candidly about those issues and shared the details of his fight. Sadly, tragically, it was a fight he could not win, says Nick Rodger. Evening Times Sport, May 28th. Rangers gunning to claim SWPL title next season. Report by Alison McConnell. Lizzie Arnott has insisted that Rangers will have a fresh impetus to claim the league title next season after signing off with a League Cup and Scottish Cup double. Joe Potter's side beat Hearts on Sunday to ensure that there was a positive end to a season that for long periods looked set to end with a domestic treble. Losing the title and goal difference to Celtic on the final day of the season will resonate across the summer break, but for Arnott, there will be a drive to go again. We have learned so much, and I think we have pushed on under Joe, said the winger, who netted the second goal on Sunday afternoon. We have won 2 cups and come so close to the league, so it has to be seen as a success. I think we can push on next season. It will be good to switch off mentally and physically. The aim is to come back stronger and fitter next year and get some more trophies. Arnott joined captain Nicola Docherty last week in signing a new contract at the club. While eager to get a break after the demands of what has been a fairly arduous season, she has enjoyed the different style that Rangers have played this season under Potter. And she said, "I love being part of this club, and being here for another 2 years is special. I just want to keep pushing on and get better. There is a lot to look forward to. There will be the chance of Champions League football next season, so it will be good to get the break and come back refreshed." Arnott admitted that last week was spent ensuring that the squad were in the right place mentally to go into Sunday's final after the excruciating way that the title slipped from their grasp. The championship had looked all set to be heading to Ibrox before Amy Gallagher netted a 90th minute winner for Celtic to give Elena Sadiku's side the championship, courtesy of their superior goal difference. Said Arnott, "It was a really important win for us on Sunday. We wanted to end the season on a high. There is no denying it was sore to lose the league the way we did, so it was important to win the Scottish Cup. We came in with one focus, and that was to win." Report by Alison McConnell. Evening Times Sport, May 29. Celtic youth star at Ireland training camp. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Promising Celtic youngster Bosun Lowell has been invited to train with the Republic of Ireland senior national team after impressing head coach John O'Shea. Lowell will join up with club teammates Liam Scales, Mikey Johnson and Adam Ida, who have all been included in O'Shea's 26-man group to face Hungary and Portugal next month. He will then transition back to the under-21s for friendlies against Croatia and England. The midfielder spent the 23-24 campaign on loan at Fleetwood Town, which saw him prosper by playing 46 times in all competitions, despite the Cod Army being relegated to England League 2. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, May 29. Galdames to Rangers transfer link. Report by David Irvin. Rangers have been linked with a transfer swoop for Chilean defender Thomas Galdames. The 25-year-old has been tipped to make the move to Europe this summer and leave Argentinian club Godoy Cruz. Reports in Chile claim Rangers feature among a number of clubs interested in striking a deal for the left-back. It is claimed clubs in Belgium's top flight, the Jupiter League, also have an interest in Galdames. The player is contracted with Godoy Cruz until December this year, but it is expected he will depart the club for a fee before then. And one journalist has even claimed Galdames will play his final match tonight before sealing a transfer exit. The defender has been called up by his national team for the Copa America provisional 55-man squad, but will first play with his club side tonight. Journalist Juan Esteban Surache reports Galdames' transfer exit abroad is close being finalised, and he said on X, formerly Twitter, "It is practically a fact that Thomas Galdames will play his last game in the Tomba shirt. The Chilean was summoned by the national team, and the sale abroad is close to being finalised." Another loss for the team. Philippe Clement has already added one fullback this summer, with Jefty signing a long-term deal for Rangers. Meanwhile, Jose Cordoba to Rangers transfer deal is off. The Ibrox club have pulled out of the race to sign Cordoba, despite the Panama international being a main target earlier in the summer window. It's understood Cordoba received a tour of Ibrox and watched the Scottish Premiership fixture against Kilmarnock in a bid to strike a deal. However, the Rangers Review now report Rangers have moved on to alternative targets. Philippe Clement had targeted Cordoba to add to his defensive options. Cordoba bid farewell to Bulgarian club Levski Sofia ahead of a possible transfer switch, but it is not known where he will be headed. He has also been linked with a possible switch to Norwich City. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, May 29. Next step for Celtic mapped out. Report by Graham McGarry. If Callum McGregor had £1 for every time he has had to utter words to the effect of winning being all that really matters, Celtic would have had enough in the bank to build a Champions League winning squad. That is because much of the time in Scotland, and particularly within the context of the Glasgow rivalry, it is true, and perhaps in no other season, with the Scottish Cup final at the weekend being the perfect example, have a Celtic side so neatly illustrated the point. Sure, Brendan Rodgers' side have played well at times. The recent demolition of Kilmarnock to seal the Premiership title and the 7-1 hammering of Dundee spring immediately to mind. But for much of the campaign, it was a real grind as injuries hampered the first season of the Rodgers transition. Regardless, they ended it as league champions and tucked the Scottish Cup safely into the cabinet, a triumph of mental will as much as it was one of footballing skill, but a triumph nonetheless. That is the bottom line, of course, but for the Celtic captain it is not enough. As a player who has built a career out of refusing to rest on his laurels, he already has one eye trained on next season and the development that has still to come from this side. He feels a sense of accomplishment in helping to get Celtic over the line by hook or by crook this term, but he wants to do it with a bit of swagger and style next time around. Said McGregor, I think for the group it will be a positive experience because it has ended well for us. The new players have come in, seen the size of the club and what the demands are. You are still winning, but not in brilliant style, so there is a little bit of noise. You have to understand that when you are playing at this club, you have got to win, and you have got to win well. I think we have got better as the season has gone on, so the guys who are here, it will be important for them moving forward. They have come through a rough experience a little bit. We have finished with 2 trophies, and then next season we have to press the reset button and go again, because we cannot rest on what we have done this season. We have to come back in with a strong mentality, working as hard as we possibly can, and then see if we can grow this group and build this squad into a really strong squad. With the solid foundations they showed at Hampden in place, their grit, resilience and physicality, McGregor is confident they can add the extras next term. And he continued, "It was tight, edgy, against your rivals for 90 minutes, but Adam Ida sticks one in the back of the net. So brilliant. You have got to show everything that you need to win finals." The strength of character in this group and resilience that this group has shown, I am delighted that we have peaked at the right time, because you need to when you come to April and May. You have to peak and you have to be ready. Physically, I thought we were brilliant. That was another 100-minute game, and the boys were still going strong. We had 4 or 5 coming off, so we are in a good place physically. It was brilliant to get over the line and finish with a double. We have certainly got better as the season has gone on. We have got key players back in who have made a big difference to the way that we play. McGregor is also conscious that Celtic cannot become so focused on being easy on the eye that they become easy to play against. And he continued, "When it comes to cup finals, you have got to turn up on the day. You have got to do enough to get yourselves over the line. It was probably not a brilliant spectacle football-wise. The quality probably wasn't in the game. But you have got to win. That's the remit. There is no point standing here having played well and lost. At this club you have got to win. Obviously, I would rather we had played well, but you can't be greedy. You have just got to win." Meanwhile, McGregor is temporarily shifting his focus to matters on the international stage, with the Celtic captain raring to go and play his part for Steve Clarke's Scotland side at the European Championships in Germany. And he said, "In the back of your head, you know it's coming. But all of our focus was the game on Saturday. Now that that's done, I'll get a couple of days off and then I will shift my focus to what will be a brilliant summer. There is huge excitement around the country, and once we get there we want to give as good an account as we can. I feel good now. That little period out will maybe do me the world of good once I get to the Scotland squad. Again, I will just give my absolute maximum and see where that takes me. I want to try and help the boys as much as I can. I feel good, so yes, let's go." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 29. Rangers Wonder Kid, first pro deal top priority. Report by David Irvin. Rangers wonder kid Alexander Smith is close to agreeing a first professional deal. The 15-year-old top prospect has been tracked by Premier League and MLS clubs, but is reportedly nearing a deal at Ibrox. Smith, who holds dual United States and Scottish nationality, is said to be close to penning a contract at Rangers valid until 2027. Fabrizio Romano claims Smith signing a first professional deal was a top priority for Philippe Clement and the Rangers board, and it is claimed that Rangers have fended off significant transfer interest to near an agreement with Smith. The Scotland under-16 talent, who also represented USA at the youth level, is highly rated at Ibrox, with hopes of a bright future in the game. Romano added, Rangers' top prospect Alexander Smith close to agreeing first professional contract at the club, valid until June 2027. Rangers have fought off strong interest from Premier League and MLS to keep him, top priority for the board and Clement. Smith was previously tipped for a move to Arsenal, which would in turn have meant Rangers receiving a compensation fee for his development. Clubs reportedly pushed to try and lure him away from the Rangers academy, but it now appears Smith will pen his first professional deal in Glasgow. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, May 29. Lucy Hope on longevity and why Paris 2024 may be her Olympic swan song. Report by Susan Egglestaff. It says much for Lucy Hope's tenacity that in a team full of superstars, the Edinburgh woman has been a mainstay of the British swimming squad for almost a decade. Hope may not have generated headlines in the vein of the likes of Duncan Scott, but her longevity is a testament to someone who has gone about her business with little fanfare, yet has picked up 13 major championship medals over the years, including an impressive 7 relay golds at the European Championships. In a sport such as swimming, which sees many of the top athletes, particularly on the female side, retire in their early 20s, Hope is bucking that trend in emphatic fashion. And having been selected for her second Olympic Games this summer, the 27-year-old admits one of her proudest achievements is her ability to continue improving at an age at which many swimmers have already hung up their goggles. I am definitely one of the older ones in the British team, which I get reminded of all the time by the younger guys, Hope says, before going on to explain what's been behind her ability to forge such a long career. It's been about consistency, she says. I am really consistent in my training, and I very rarely get ill. It's about turning up to training every day and putting in your best effort, and because of that I've been able to stay at this level for so long. Often you think your peak is younger than it really is, but there's always things to improve upon, and there's always ways to do things better or be more efficient. Much of the reason for her continuous improvement is the quality of swimmers she is alongside, and as a vital member of the women's 4x200 metres freestyle relay squad, that also includes individual world champion Freya Colbert. Hope is in no doubt that the ferocious but healthy level of competition between the women in the relay squad has ensured she has continued to improve as a swimmer year on year, and it says it all that the Borders native believes this current batch of British swimmers is the strongest group she has been involved with. Of the women's sprint relay squad, she says, As a relay squad, we're really pushing each other to be the best we can all be. When we're training together, you don't want to be finishing last, so it means you have to push yourself that bit more. It's such a competitive environment. You're looking at what other people are doing, and you're wanting to be the best that's going to make us all stronger. And I think as a whole, this is the best British team we've ever had, so hopefully there's good things to come at the Olympics. After being assured of her place at Paris 2024, Hope was one of 5 Scots selected for Team Great Britain's swimming team last month, alongside Duncan Scott, Kathleen Dawson, Kiana McInnes and Katie Shanahan. The freestyle sprinter who trains at the University of Stirling has ambitions of producing some of her fastest ever times this summer. After being part of the 4x200 metres freestyle relay squad that took silver at last year's World Championships, a place on the Olympic podium is certainly not out of the realms of possibility for Hope in Paris. She is reluctant to admit her ambitions lie any further afield than swimming her best, but she is hopeful she'll have a smoother run towards Paris than she did ahead of Tokyo, before which she caught COVID the month before the Games, severely disrupting her preparation for her Olympic debut. That first Olympic appearance, however, has equipped Hope with a load of experience that she's optimistic she'll be able to positively draw upon this summer, and that, coupled with the knowledge that Paris may be her final Olympics, is what fuels her desire to produce some of her best performances of her life in Paris. And she says, "I think I still can tap into the experience I gained in Tokyo, even though it was an unusual Games with it being in a pandemic. First time around you think it's going to be scarier than it maybe is, but then you realise it's about relaxing into it. I don't want to say for certain this is my last Olympics, but I'll be 31 in 2028, so that might be pushing it a bit. I never want to put a limit on what I can do, and it's just about taking it year by year. Last year I swam the best I've swum, and hopefully I can improve upon that this summer." Report by Susan Egglestaff. Evening Times Sport, May 29. The Unseen Joe Hart Influence. Report by Graham McGarry. Celtic captain Callum McGregor has paid a fulsome tribute to giant Joe Hart on his retirement from professional football, saying that his legacy will live on at the club for years to come. Hart brought the curtain down on his career as he helped Celtic to the 1-0 win over Rangers on Saturday that secured the Scottish Cup and a double for Brendan Rodgers' men, a fitting way for the 37-year-old to bow out of the game. McGregor will miss the support Hart gave him in a leadership role within the Celtic dressing room next term, but he is certain that the impact and influence he had on his teammates, particularly the younger ones, will continue to benefit Celtic for a long time to come. Said McGregor, "When you play with top experienced players, you have to learn from them. That is why they are there. They are there so you can ask questions and watch what they do and how they prepare themselves. He is 37. He has seen a lot in football. He has been at the top level. He has gone through difficult moments in his career as well. He is somebody that the players should look at and really learn from, because once you come across these top players, You have to get every bit of information out of them that you can. You could not write a better script. Finishing with a double, beating Rangers at Hampden with a last-minute goal, and a clean sheet for him. It is a brilliant way to finish. He can go and enjoy his retirement. I am sure you will see him popping up somewhere. He deserves every plaudit and every bit of credit that he is going to get, because he has been a giant since he walked through the door, someone who is hugely experienced and respected at the club and in football. He has been a huge part of why we have been successful over the last 3 years. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 30th. Golf. Scheffler to move on from United States PGA incident. Scotty Scheffler wants to move on after all criminal charges against him were dismissed on Wednesday to bring an extraordinary fortnight for the world number one to an end. Scheffler's bid to win the United States PGA Championship was thrown into chaos on May 17 when he was arrested ahead of his second round after he tried to drive into Valhalla Golf Club in heavy traffic, which had been caused by an unrelated accident in which a male pedestrian died. Masters champion Scheffler briefly spent time in jail before returning to the course to play his second round, and had faced charges of second-degree assault of a police officer, third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic signals from an officer directing traffic. Scheffler's lawyer, Steve Romanis, insisted at the time that the charges against his client would either be dropped or will go to trial, but the former has now occurred after Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell tendered a motion of order to dismiss all charges at the Hall of Justice in Louisville. As I stated previously, this was an unfortunate misunderstanding, Scheffler later posted on his Instagram page. I hold no ill will towards Officer Brian Gillis. I wish to put this incident behind me and move on, and I hope he will do the same. Police officers have a difficult job, and I hold them in high regard. This was a severe miscommunication in a chaotic situation. I appreciate the support during the past 2 weeks and want to again encourage everyone to remember the real tragedy of May 17. My thoughts and prayers continue to be with John Mills and his family, and I hope to personally offer my condolences now that this case is over. May John rest in peace. O'Connell told the court, based upon the totality of the evidence, my office cannot move forward in the prosecution of the charges filed against Mr. Scheffler. Mr. Scheffler's characterization that this was a big misunderstanding is corroborated by the evidence. The evidence we reviewed supports the conclusion that Detective Gillis was concerned for public safety at the scene when he initiated contact with Mr. Scheffler. However, Mr. Scheffler's actions and the evidence surrounding their exchange and misunderstanding do not satisfy the elements of any criminal offences. For these reasons, I now tender to the court a motion of order to dismiss all these charges in this case against Mr. Scheffler with prejudice. According to the police report at the time, Detective Gillis stopped Scheffler's car and attempted to give instructions to him. The report alleged Scheffler refused to comply and accelerated forward, dragging Detective Gillis to the ground, but there was no police body cam footage after it had failed to be turned on. Scheffler proceeded to be arrested and detained by Louisville Metropolitan Police Department, but claimed it was all a big misunderstanding, which allowed him to resume his participation in the United States PGA Championship. While Scheffler carded a second-round 66, he had to settle for a tie of 8th place and finish 7 points off eventual winner Xander Schauffele. A statement by Louisville Police Department read, "We respect the county attorney's decision and we respect the judicial process. LMPD will remain focused on our mission to serve the city of Louisville and mitigate violent crime. Videos and documents which were previously unreleased due to the judicial process will be made available after appropriate redactions are made." Evening Times Sport, May 30. Celtic dealt major transfer blow in goalkeeper search. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic have reportedly been dealt a major blow in their search for a new number one goalkeeper. Cohen Casteels was believed to be a top target for Brendan Rodgers and his recruitment team this summer. It comes amid Joe Hart's retirement from football as the champions seek to find a new, experienced player between the sticks. Belgian international Casteels is now said to have decided on his next club after leaving Wolfsburg recently. But it's bad news for Celtic, as it's not the Scottish Premiership champions. HLN states that the 31-year-old will be the next big name to head for the Middle East and join the football revolution in Saudi Arabia. Recently promoted Al Qadsiya are ready to spend big this summer as they aim to build a squad capable of surviving in the Pro League, and they see Casteels as a viable option as a free agent to come in as the new number one. The towering keeper admitted that he wanted to have his future tied up before this summer's European Championships, where he will feature for Belgium. It was hoped by the Hoops that having the carrot of Champions League phase football next term would be enough to convince Casteels to join them, but it seems they have missed out. Meanwhile, there are 8 Celtic players who could head for transfer exit. Brendan Rodgers is looking to build on his league and cup double winning squad ahead of next season as he looks to make improvements. It was a successful season for the Hoops in the end, but most fans would admit that it wasn't exactly vintage Celtic for the most part, and so a number of fringe players are expected to move on from Parkhead during pre-season. The Scottish Sun has named 8 of those who look likely to depart, whether it be on a permanent basis or just on loan. And O is the headline name at the front of the clear-out. The South Korean striker was signed for £2.5 million by Ange Postecoglou, but has barely featured for the club under Rodgers. He was nowhere to be seen from the weekend's Scottish Cup final winning squad. He signed a 5-year deal when he arrived in January 2023. So, while the chances are high that his game time will be limited again next season, it seems if any buyers are out there, then O will be on his way out of the club. With Celtic hoping to strike a deal with Norwich City for Adam Ida as well, they may need to create room in the forward area by moving O on. Other players on the cusp of the squad who seem destined to leave are Gustav Liga-Bilke, Yuki Kobayashi, and Benji Siegrist. The former saw a loan to Italian side Lecce blocked in the January transfer window, much to the Swedes' frustration. However, the other two have barely been seen with regard to first-team matters. Shade Haksabanovic, who spent last season out on loan at Stoke City, is expected to leave also. Kwon joined St Mirren in January, and another loan appears to be on the cards. Alexandro Bernabe is on loan at Internacional until the winter window, and it seems that's exactly where he will stay for the time being. Talented youngster Bosun Lowell has several clubs north and south of the border chasing his signature, so a further loan to continue his development would make sense for Celtic's recruitment chiefs. Evening Times Sport, May 30th. Golf. Scheffler to move on from United States PGA incident. Scotty Scheffler wants to move on after all criminal charges against him were dismissed on Wednesday to bring an extraordinary fortnight for the world number one to an end. Scheffler's bid to win the United States PGA Championship was thrown into chaos on May 17 when he was arrested ahead of his second round after he tried to drive into Valhalla Golf Club in heavy traffic, which had been caused by an unrelated accident in which a male pedestrian died. Masters champion Scheffler briefly spent time in jail before returning to the course to play his second round, and had faced charges of second-degree assault of a police officer, third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic signals from an officer directing traffic. Scheffler's lawyer, Steve Rominis, insisted at the time that the charges against his client would either be dropped or will go to trial, but the former has now occurred after Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell tendered a motion of order to dismiss all charges at the Hall of Justice in Louisville. As I stated previously, this was an unfortunate misunderstanding, Scheffler later posted on his Instagram page. I hold no ill will towards Officer Brian Gillis. I wish to put this incident behind me and move on, and I hope he will do the same. Police officers have a difficult job, and I hold them in high regard. This was a severe miscommunication in a chaotic situation. I appreciate the support during the past 2 weeks and want to again encourage everyone to remember the real tragedy of May 17. My thoughts and prayers continue to be with John Mills and his family, and I hope to personally offer my condolences now that this case is over. May John rest in peace. O'Connell told the court, based upon the totality of the evidence, my office cannot move forward in the prosecution of the charges filed against Mr. Scheffler. Mr. Scheffler's characterization that this was a big misunderstanding is corroborated by the evidence. The evidence we reviewed supports the conclusion that Detective Gillis was concerned for public safety at the scene when he initiated contact with Mr. Scheffler. However, Mr. Scheffler's actions and the evidence surrounding their exchange and misunderstanding do not satisfy the elements of any criminal offences. For these reasons, I now tender to the court a motion of order to dismiss all these charges in this case against Mr. Scheffler with prejudice. According to the police report at the time, Detective Gillis stopped Scheffler's car and attempted to give instructions to him. The report alleged Scheffler refused to comply and accelerated forward, dragging Detective Gillis to the ground, but there was no police body cam footage after it had failed to be turned on. Scheffler proceeded to be arrested and detained by Louisville Metropolitan Police Department, but claimed it was all a big misunderstanding, which allowed him to resume his participation in the United States PGA Championship. While Scheffler carded a second-round 66, he had to settle for a tie of 8th place and finish 7 points off eventual winner Xander Schauffele. A statement by Louisville Police Department read, "We respect the county attorney's decision and we respect the judicial process. LMPD will remain focused on our mission to serve the city of Louisville and mitigate violent crime." Videos and documents which were previously unreleased due to the judicial process will be made available after appropriate redactions are made. Evening Times Sport, May 31. Celtic defender admits hiding in the shadows. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Celtic right-back Alistair Johnston has admitted that taking himself into the shadows has enabled him to cope with life in the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl and protect his mental health. Johnston, who moved to Scotland from Montreal in his native Canada at the end of 2022, has found becoming a public figure and being constantly approached by fans to be difficult to deal with at times. However, he has received invaluable advice from his more experienced club mates, the likes of James Forrest, Joe Hart and Callum McGregor, since arriving in this country, and has discovered having outside interests away from football can help to release the pressure. The defender, who is set to represent his country at the Copa America in the United States next month, has enjoyed taking his black Labrador dog, Salem, for walks during the Cinch Premiership and Scottish Gas Scottish Cup double campaign. And he said, "I've learned that going to the grocery store, and even just simple things like that, you are constantly getting bombarded and just recognised. It takes a mental toll on you as well." I did struggle with that, because it was just something that I was not used to. But talking to the older guys is good. You can see James Forrest. He is never going to go a day pretty much without someone saying something about Celtic. You have to be select sometimes. You need to understand how much energy you are actually expending in those conversations. You want to be there for the fans, but at the same time, you need to also really prioritize your mental health as well. So it's been something I have learned, how to tune out of it. I have had some great releases in terms of getting a dog and stuff, and that's just taken my mind off it. You know, you go for an evening walk, and you can just kind of be yourself and hide in the shadows of the darkness a little bit. It's things like that I have learned from talking to older guys. And it's things like that help you not just to go through each day and count them down, but really enjoy them, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be at this club forever, except if you are like Jamesy and a club legend. Your time is always limited at a place like this. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, May 31. Doak receives Scotland praise. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Ben Doak has slotted into the Scotland squad like he's been here for 10 years, says John Carver. The highly rated Liverpool prodigy has been included in Steve Clarke's 28-man provisional Euro 2024 squad and has been tipped to be this year's big breakthrough star. Brighton's Billy Gilmour announced himself on the international scene at the last Euros, and now Carver has challenged Scotland's youngsters to make their mark over in Germany this summer. The Scotland assistant coach explained, "Billy Gilmour was a great example of that. He was a young lad, he came in, and look where he is now. Fantastic. So we are hoping one or two of the younger guys will do that. For example, Ben Doak, who nothing phases. He's fitting into the group straight away, which is quite amazing, because I remember when I was a young lad, and I went with the first team for the first time, and I was petrified. He's come in and he's fitted into the group. It's like he's been here 10 years. If we have to rely on him, and he has to go on and perform, we don't fear that he's going to let himself down, or the team. He will gain from the experience, just like Billy Gilmour did." Carver is confident that Doak will thrive with the senior squad and was eager to point out all the key attributes the one-time Celtic starlet possesses. He added, "He's different because he has pace. We have a really good team, we have a good squad, but we don't have a great deal of pace in that final third, and against the top sides to try and open something up, he may just do that. We have adopted the style of play because of the players we have, but he is different and he could come on with 20 minutes to go and just do something special that can get us a point or 3 points. So we know he's going to give us something different. He was playing as a centre forward for the 21s. He was playing outside right and coming on for Liverpool in that environment at Anfield with those fans. It was exciting to see him." Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, May 31. Rangers to demand six-figure compensation fee for James Bisgrove. Report by David Irvin. Rangers chiefs are set to demand a significant compensation fee for departing Chief Executive James Bisgrove. It is understood Ibrox officials will push for a six-figure payout for Bisgrove to complete a big-money move to Saudi Arabia. Shock news last night confirmed the chief executive would depart the club after 5 years in Glasgow. Bisgrove is set to take up a new football role in the Middle East, with a job offer accepted by the chief executive. The Rangers Review first reported the Ibrox demands for a payout over Bisgrove's exit, with an interim executive structure implanted ahead of the summer transfer window. John Bennett has assumed the role of executive chairman at Rangers to oversee plans on and off the pitch over the summer. The executive chairman will lead a team of remaining executives with Philippe Clement, Nils Koppen, and the club football board to work together on summer transfer business. It is understood there is no rush to appoint a new chief executive to replace Bisgrove at this time, with options to be considered while Bennett leads operations alongside other executives. A Rangers statement read, "Rangers can confirm Chief Executive Officer James Bisgrove will leave the club, having accepted a new football role in the Middle East." The Rangers board has implemented an interim executive structure and, together with John Bennett, Philippe Clement, Nils Koppen, and the football board, will prioritise the execution of the summer transfer activity. John Bennett will assume the role of Executive Chairman on an interim basis to ensure continuity and support to the wider executive team as they focus on executing our plans for the summer, both on and off the pitch. The Executive Chairman will lead a team comprising current executives. They are Chief Finance Officer James Taylor, Director of Football Recruitment Nils Coppin, Football Operations Director Craig Robertson, and Chief Commercial Officer Karim Varani. Chairman Bennett said of Bisgrove's departure, "I would like to thank James for the work he's done at the club over the last 5 years as Commercial and Marketing Director and latterly as our CEO. Our commercial revenues grew significantly under James' leadership, while in the last year he was an integral part of the off-field restructuring the club has implemented. The executive team James helped shape has firmly established itself, and I fully expect its momentum to be uninterrupted. We wish James every success with his new role." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, May 31. Rangers linked with Uruguayan. Report by David Irvin. Rangers have been linked with a transfer move for Penarol midfielder Damian Garcia. The 20-year-old Uruguayan currently plays in the top flight in his homeland, but is out of contract at the end of the year. Rangers have been credited with an interest in the midfielder, but it is unclear whether any formal approach has been made. Journalist Nathan Joyce reported the midfielder had been linked with an Ibrox transfer, but Penarol are keen to keep hold of him until December. Reporter Klaus German states the Uruguayan club would, though, be willing to agree a transfer if the player is loaned back until the end of the season. The commentator and reporter revealed Penarol want to keep him until December. They are willing to sell him during the summer transfer window if they let him stay until the end of the season. His agent is mad that he has a wage of a second division player. If Penarol are smart, they will renew his contract, give him a better wage, and increase his release clause. One of our best homemade talents at the moment. It comes after Garcia's agent blasted Penarol over the wage being offered by the club, as he explained transfer interest from the MLS, Mexico, and other markets, and said, "I really like the MLS for Damian, but there are chances for Mexico and other markets. If Damian didn't have me, he wouldn't be able to live like a professional and perform as well as he does. If not, he would not be able to pay rent, live as he lives, and help his mother, who cleans floors. What happens is that the contracts expire, and you have no obligation to renew, and even less so if you offer me 2 pesos, like the Vice President did. He offered Damian Garcia 2 pesos for renewal." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, May 31. St Mirren poised to complete Smith transfer deal. Report by David Irvin. Oxford United midfielder Usain Smith is poised to make a transfer switch to St Mirren. The 24-year-old is expected to leave the newly promoted Championship club to head north to Paisley. Smith, who featured 16 times for Oxford in the past season, began his career as a midfielder, but played in central defence and right back on occasion last term. The former Dungannon Swift player has been tipped to make the switch to St Mirren in a report in his homeland. The Belfast Telegraph reports Smith to St Mirren is all but concluded, with just formalities to be finalised before official confirmation from the clubs. Smith had joined Oxford for an undisclosed fee in 2022 after impressing in Northern Ireland. It's thought a deal to see him leave Oxford in favour of more game time in Scotland is nearing completion. St Mirren would offer a platform for Smith to impress with the club in European competition next season and could see the former Northern Ireland Youth International link up with Stephen Robinson and current Northern Ireland assistant coach Dermot O'Carroll. Robinson has made use of his vast knowledge of the Northern Irish scene at St Mirren previously, with Conor McMenamin and Caelan Boyd-Munce, recent examples of players excelling in Paisley and becoming regular squad players for the national team. Smith fell out of favour at Oxford at the back end of the season and was not involved in the playoff final win over Bolton at Wembley earlier this month. The midfielder did make the headlines earlier in the season though, as a wonder strike against Charlton won a Goal of the Season award. Smith, utilised in defence for the match, drove forward before launching a stunning effort into the top corner from all of 30 yards. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, June 3. Dykes is irreplaceable, says Clark. Report by Graham McGarry. Steve Clark will give himself a couple of days to decide on whether or not to call up a replacement for the injured Lyndon Dykes, saying that no matter what he does, there is no way he can compensate for the loss of the striker. The Scotland manager was devastated for Dykes after he injured his ankle at the national team's Glasgow training base last week and was subsequently ruled out of the European Championships. Clark had previously said he would look to his under-21 squad should he require any replacements for injured members of his original 28-man provisional squad, with a senior call-up for Bristol City striker Tommy Conway under consideration. But the national team's head coach says that there is nothing he can do to replicate the qualities that Dykes brings to his side. Said Clark, "I have got a couple of days, so we'll have a think about what to do. What is the best for the group, for the team, and take it from there. The reason I am taking a little bit of time is so I can think about everything, the whole picture. The 21s is an area where we will look for sure, but there are other options out there. Nobody replicates what Lyndon brings. Lyndon brings what he does, what his qualities are. One of the best phone calls I have ever made as the head coach of Scotland was to Lyndon, right at the very start, when he had the option of Scotland or Australia. Since then, we have had a great relationship. Lyndon is devastated that he is not going, but I am really disappointed myself that he is not going. It wasn't good. It was quite near the end of the session as well, which always seems to hurt a little bit more. We just stopped the session after that. There was no point in carrying on. It was just the way he landed on his ankle. That was it. No connection with any player. He was trying to get on the end of a cross, and it was just the way he landed. Dykes has gone home to process the blow of missing out on a major tournament for his nation, and Clark is leaving the door open for him to travel to Germany and be around the squad in a supporting role if he feels up to it. And he said, It's too early for that. He has gone home. He has his family with him. I'll give him a ring at the start of next week and see where we go. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, June 3. How Robert and Dougie McIntyre brought light back to the PGA Tour. Report by Joe Callahan. Argyll and Bute Council might want to begin their new working week by exploring a transatlantic route from Oban Airport. The feasibility study should start at the McIntyre family home in Glencrutton. Last month, it was Mother Carol who jetted out to Kentucky to provide the comforts of home cooking, which nourished Robert McIntyre to an 8th place finish at the PGA Championship in Valhalla, his best result at a major on this side of the water. This week here, amid the undulating hills of the Niagara Escarpment, it was Father Dougie's turn to shake off last-minute jet lag and help his big boy to the brink of something even more special. Through 4 days of the RBC Canadian Open, it was the McIntyre father and son story which captured the hearts, minds and CBS TV microphones. With Dougie on the bag, Bob stitched together a stellar tournament to win last night. Back out and off to see what they could see. A first PGA Tour victory on McIntyre's rookie season in North America. On paper, a lot was riding on that binary result. $1.7 million, give or take. A place at the United States Open in Pinehurst. But off the paper, off the phone screens, and the digital scoreboards scattered around Hamilton Golf and Country Club, the McIntyres had already made a tangible, real-world difference. In one of the darkest weeks the PGA Tour could remember, father and son had provided much-needed light and a bit of love, even if some of it was of the Oban tough variety. The loss of Grayson Murray to suicide the previous week hung over Hamilton in that way that suicide does, in waves that roll and crash, but sometimes just lap in the distance, that drift out but always back in again. The tourmates Murray left behind confronted his loss and how the game of golf can drive you to dark places. Golfers ultimately are a vulnerable and fragile lot, admitted Rory McIlroy on the tournament's eve. All week players and caddies wore green ribbons in honour of Murray, who had been public in his battles with addiction and psychological challenges. The message of the ribbons read, "Mental health is health." A sport which can always do with a bit of perspective got more than it could remember. You know, after the news of the last week, golf is a lot bigger than the game of golf, McIntyre said Friday lunchtime after taking the halfway clubhouse lead. We are human beings. It's about going out there. I've got my dad on the bag and we're just trying to enjoy as much as we can because we don't know how much longer we've got of that. It's good to just spend an extra week with loved ones. There is arguably an important similarity between McIntyre and Murray, gone tragically young at 30. The 2023 Ryder Cup hero has not been afraid to be humble and open about his struggles with the isolation of this trade, a game that spends hours getting in your head and then sends you back to a sterile hotel room to ponder success and failure. Earlier in May, McIntyre talked about the loneliness he felt in his first year stateside compared to life on the DP World Tour. On Wednesday evening, on the practice greens here, he was quiet, doing his own thing. But he wasn't alone now. Dougie had answered an SOS and flown out to be on his bag for the first time in a long time. Bob having chopped and changed caddies of late. Father oversaw son's drills without too much interruption. A word here, a pointer there. But that's sometimes what it takes, and in a heavy week, it was more than enough. It's just different. It hits differently. Because he properly means it, McIntyre, still engaging and open, explained after a stunning back nine gave him his 4-shot final day cushion going into the last day. I know the caddies mean it for another reason. They're obviously wanting us to do well. But my dad wants me to do well because we're blood. You know what I mean? There's nothing other than pride and guts and what we're trying to do. He's been through thick and thin with me. He taught me how to play the game of golf until I started working with a coach, probably at about 14 or 15 years of age. It was just me and him, my family going round 4 holes at Glencruiton Golf Club, out the back of the house for many years. When he's at home and I'm not doing well, he's messaging me going, "What the hell's happening? What's this? That?" He gives me a bit of advice from afar. I've obviously got my swing coach, Simon Shanks, who has done a great job with me. But if in doubt, the video goes back to my dad. We just get on so well, and it's tough love at times. Asked the previous evening what was one lesson he took from his father, McIntyre curled a lip up and smiled. Along with my life, keep playing shinty. When there was a brief Saturday wobble, some of Dougie's simplest advice came from a shinty sideline. Keep your bloody head up. Stop mumping and moaning about it. McIntyre went out on Sunday hunting a first Scottish win on tour since Martin Laird Shriner's Children's Open victory in 2020 and the first in the prime fillet of the season since Russell Knox won the Travellers' Championship 8 long years ago, which just so happens to be as long as it had been since McIntyre Sr. had been on the bag. With the season about to go into a meaty and meaningful 8-week stretch, featuring 2 elevated purse signature events, the United States Open, the Scottish Open, and the Open Championship at Troon, Dougie could have a hell of a summer job in his hands. I think I might need to start negotiating a wage, father prodded son coming off the 18th. For another day, another week. But in this most challenging, confronting week, the McIntyres had already found something to really value, more than enough. Report by Joe Callaghan. Evening Times Sport, June 3. Robert McIntyre wins first PGA Tour title. Scotland's Robert McIntyre recovered from a shaky start and held off a host of challengers to win his first PGA Tour title in the RBC Canadian Open. McIntyre carded a final round of 68 at Hamilton Golf and Country Club to finish 16 under par, a shot ahead of home favourite Ben Griffin. Griffin had piled on the pressure with birdies on the 15th, 16th and 17th to close within one of his playing partner, but could not find a 4th in a row on the last to potentially force a play-off. That meant McIntyre had the luxury of 2-putting from 10 feet for the win before embracing his father Dougie, who had been called on to caddy at short notice. Asked why he was so emotional at the win, McIntyre gestured to his dad as he told CBS, "Because of this, I'm speechless, to be honest. This is just about everything for me and my family, my girlfriend, my team. I cannot believe I've done it with him on the bag. I'm crying with joy, but I'm laughing because I didn't think it was possible." McIntyre had seen his 4-shot overnight lead wiped out in the space of 4 holes after he bogeyed the first, and home favourite Mackenzie Hughes made a hat-trick of early birdies. However, McIntyre responded superbly to birdie the 4th, 7th and 8th to regain control of the £7.4 million event, despite having to ask for a drone being used for the television coverage to be moved on several occasions before he finally got his wish. Another birdie on the 11th was followed by a wild tee shot on the 12th into a water hazard, and another bogey on the 13th opened the door for the chasing pack, but the Ryder Cup star crucially birdied the 15th and safely parred the last 3 holes. McIntyre has made no secret of his struggle to adapt to living in the United States this season, but benefited hugely from a 3-week spell back in Scotland in April and contended for the Myrtle Beach Classic before finishing 8th in the United States PGA Championship. Added McIntyre, "I was going down the last, and my dad's trying to tell me to stay focused and swing smooth, because yesterday I got a little bit too fast, but in my head I wasn't listening to him. I wanted to win this for my dad. This is the guy that's taught me the game of golf, and I just cannot believe I did this with him on the bag." Dougie, who is head greenkeeper at Glencruiton Golf Club in Oban, said, "It's unbelievable. I'm a grass cutter, not a caddy. I got phoned last Saturday night. I'm sitting on the couch at home 8 o'clock Saturday night, and I'm thinking, can I leave my job here? I'm busy at work. 8 o'clock the next morning, I'm on a flight out here, and wow." Asked if his dad was now a permanent fixture on the bag, McIntyre added, "No, Dad's on the flight home on Monday. I think me and my girlfriend might go home as well and just have a hell of a party because this is incredible."
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service